Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Debbie Craig, and I live here in beautiful Barville. The reason I stand before you tonight is to talk about the well contamination, more specifically well 3A. As you are aware, it was nearly 20 years ago when this town went through a horrific ordeal. You have heard testimony from residents that had to live through that. And unfortunately, a lot of those residents cannot be here tonight as they have moved away. Fortunately for me, I did not have to go through that. I lived where there was an artesian well. But I saw what my neighbors, my friends, and my fellow Barvillians went through at that time. It truly was devastating. The residents of this town came together to try and do whatever we could to help. And finally, the well was sealed shut and the residents could try and move on with their lives. And now, nearly 20 years later, while this monster lays sleeping, sealed shut, Invenergy wants to open this well. But opening up this monster is like pouring salt into an open wound. And the residents here are scared to death of what will happen when that monster awakes. Invenergy claims that they can clean up 99.9% of this well. So I started looking on the internet to see any contaminated wells that have been cleaned up. It's hard to believe there are so many contaminated sites throughout the United States. It totally blew my mind. As I was reading about different sites throughout the country, I came across an article written in 2011 by Dave Fisher, Eco Rhode Island News staff. I will not read the whole article to you, but there are a couple of bullet points that I would like to bring to your attention. In the article, Mike Cody, remediation specialist for the State Department of Environmental Management, states when dealing with these remediation, the law of diminishing returns applies. It's easy to get out the first 60 or 70%. Cody said trying to get out the last 30%, the costs go up astronomically, and it takes years and years. You start to get to the point that it is either economically or technically infeasible. As I was researching this, I found that it does take years and years. There has been no site that has been cleaned up in any kind of a timely manner, and no site that has ever been cleaned up to 99.9%, as Invenergy claims they can do. As stated in this article, the State Department of Environmental Management continues to monitor the MTBE contaminated aquifer. At one point in time, the MTBE levels were as high as 1,700 parts per billion. That is 42 times the EPA limit for drinking water. Now, I'm aware that these numbers have probably come down a little bit over time. However, any amount of MTBE that will be put into our air that we have to breathe on a daily basis is unacceptable. Cody goes on to say, in best case scenario, for the contamination to reduce to below the 40 parts per million threshold set by the EPA, which is his goal, is that good enough to turn the well back on? That's the Department of Health, and there are a lot of different standards for what is protective. The Rhode Island Department of Health maintains that even if the MTBE is cleaned up to the EPA standards, it will never reopen the village's public well. Well 3A will remain closed, not because of the current levels of contamination, but due to the potential for future contamination at this site. I would respectfully ask that after you're reading these documents, if you are as concerned as I am about the potential for future contamination, that you use the resources available to you and look into this further, because it is a grave concern to all of us. And I would ask that you vote against this power plant. Thank you.